For today's show, I am partnering with Castro, the podcast app that makes it easy to enjoy episodes of your favorite shows with the best playback experience available. Designed to help you expand your listening habits and track a broad range of shows without getting overwhelmed. Castro is the podcast app for podcast lovers. So if you love my show and others like it, give Castro a try. Go to castro.fm to download the Castro podcast app today.
Not everyone understands house music. It's a spiritual thing, a body thing, a soul thing. A soul thing.
Hi, thanks for joining me on the Everything and Anything and a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I have a new guest. She is an author. She has a brand new book out, and it is called The Space Between Breaths. And Kellie, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Kellie I think she's got a really unique background, and I haven't interviewed anybody with all her different her background before. So first of all, she's a Buddhist, which I think is fantastic. I've read books on Buddhism. I think it's the only religion that I really probably relate to more than any other religion. So I think that's amazing. I'd love to hear about how you got into Buddhism, because you've been doing Buddhism. You've been a Buddhist for 25 years.
Yeah, I have. I started studying, and then that just kept developing until I eventually took refuge in Buddhism.
And what made you pick that, or what drew you to Buddhism religion?
It's absolutely the way anybody should pick their religion. I did it because I couldn't sleep. And as a lifelong insomniac, somebody had told me there was a Dharma center nearby that was teaching meditation. And maybe if I could do that, I could actually get some sleep and do better. And so I went really just to learn how to meditate, thinking that it would help me fall asleep. And when I got there, there was such a calm and a peace. And what I noticed, particularly because I was coming from Christianity, is Buddhism was the one place that didn't just talk about having peace, but how to have peace. There's that extra little what to do in that. And so as I began to study that and learn more about Buddhism and the way it's centered and what it thinks and how it wants you to open yourself up and be accountable to your processes and your understandings, I just really kept thinking, this is the place for me. This is who I am. And I think that's really the best way, no matter what belief system or no belief system you have, is when you find that resting place that says, this is where I am. This is who I am.
That's
This
awesome.
feels like me.
And you are in the South, is that correct?
I am. I live in rural central Virginia.
Okay.
My father was from East Tennessee and my mother was from Maryland. So I'm from Appalachia.
Okay.
And so I do live in the South. And when people want to ask about my credential, or I know things, I'll always start with, I am a progressive Buddhist lesbian who lives in the conservative Christian South.
Yeah.
And if I can get through that, I can do anything.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not a bad place. I love my Virginia home. I love the people in my community, but there is a majority and a prevalence here that's challenging.
Have you ran into challenges? So also, we should tell the audience that you've been married to your wife for 25 years. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. We've been together 26. We've been married 25, and we've been legally married for 11.
Okay.
There's always a challenge, but it's not the kind of challenge that the generations before me had. Yeah, our challenges tend to be those kind of well-meaning challenges, although not all of them are well-meaning. I've had people write words on my car window, and I've had some of those things happen. But mostly the challenges here are when I was at a signing Sunday, and this very lovely lady came to our table, and my wife was helping by taking the money and handling that part. And it's just, oh, isn't it nice your friend is here?
And
And then actually the book goes into that too, with that character, this idea that she's not my friend. And it seems very harmless until you begin to realize that it's very illegitimatizing. And also when somebody is in crisis or passes away and they say, oh, you lost your friend. Nothing can make you want to explode faster than that.
Yeah.
So there's those kind of things. Very rarely when we go out to a restaurant, does somebody not say, oh, is this separate checks? And I'm thinking, if we were a man and a woman of our age eating, that would never be a question.
Yeah.
So there's those kind of more heteronormative ideas that come about. But then, particularly in the current administration, there's a lot of marriage equals man plus woman bumper stickers, and there's a little bit of ire
Yeah, so tell me about that,
around.
how since this new administration has come in, how that has impacted you and your community, if at all. Have you seen a shift in the way people's how they think? Because I'll just tell you that I live in Boston, so I'm in a bubble. I I'm in a liberal town. You can walk down the street holding hands with your husband or wife, and no one cares. No one will look twice. And I see all the stuff that's happening in the news, and I feel like we were progressing so far, and I feel like been we've taken several steps back. And are you seeing that kind of locally in your area?
There's definitely there's two sides to that. There's definitely an emboldened position on the behalf of conservatives and people who are opposed to inclusivity. And it's really in Buddhism, we would think of this in a weird way as a good thing because it's awareness. We're at a place where people who hold homophobic or exclusive ideas are really feeling okay to own that. And when they own that, then we can see that and we can look at that and challenge that. And so we are seeing a lot more boldness. We're also seeing, though, a lot of the community step up and be louder and be more intentional and be more bold. And it feels very different. And again, the part of the character in the book goes to this too. I grew up at a time when the first coming out you really had to do was to yourself and to discover what the word for what you were was. There
Mhm.
were no gay straight alliances. There were no books for gay young people. There were no things like that. And so before you told anybody you were gay, you had to find out you were gay
Yeah.
and that you weren't the same as everybody else. And so I look at this now and people say, oh, we're going so far backwards. I think we are and we're not. Now there's more resources, there's more community, there's podcasts like this. There's ways that we can connect to one another instead of that awful isolation that we had.
Yeah.
At the same time, I was really surprised. I went to a women's writers group, which is an advocacy group, which is very focused on inclusion. It is the one place where any writer should feel safe. And a long-term member there in the middle of a discussion said, I think because our national chapter was talking about making sure the verbiage in our bylaws is specific to LGBTQ and different writers. And she popped up and said, this group is just too woke. And I almost fell over. I was in such shock. And this is DEI. There was a great sadness to me because it was clear she doesn't know what those words mean
Yeah.
in any real way. It's just become the club that we use that we haven't even read the instructions to. And at the same time, I was really elated because I was able to sit in that group and say, I am a lesbian author. I am traditionally published. And when I go to writers groups, I look for that word
Mm.
because what you don't understand is in a place like this, everybody's welcome never feels like it means me.
Yeah.
I never feel like part of everybody. And it created a genuine discussion and they left the wordage in. And I felt good. So I am seeing that boldness, but I'm also seeing more and more people willing to listen or understanding, just as children don't know exactly what they're learning, they just know how they feel.
Yeah.
And then they put a framework around that. I think what we're seeing right now in these days of outrage is a lot of feeling. And we don't really know exactly what to do or how to say it, but we know how it makes us feel.
Yeah.
And so the more people who pop out with this kind of horrid boldness, it gets those feelings out. So we're not just pretending. I think this is a chance, even as we feel that magnetic or that force pushing us backwards, this is a chance to move past tolerance to coexistence, to education, to other
Yeah.
things, because now we're seeing where that thin line of tolerance was.
Yeah. Going back to my original question, how you got into Buddhism, did you actually solve your insomnia issue?
I did. And I don't sleep, but I give myself body rest. And that was really what I found out was it didn't really make me go to sleep any better. But what it did do is if I can't sleep, I learned how to do body scans and how to meditate so that my mind and body are in a restful state,
Okay.
even if I'm not completely asleep.
Got it.
And so I have loads of energy.
Yeah.
I didn't have before.
How did you meet your wife?
I met my life where Everybody should meet their wife. I met her while I was doing a how to wear a condom demonstration at an HIV event.
Okay.
I worked for a long time as an HIV AIDS prevention specialist and care provider, and I happened to be at a local event in El Paso, Texas, where
Okay.
we both lived at the time. And I was doing a dinner speech with the usual how to wear condoms, how to cheat condoms, how to do anything with condoms. So I was really the only lesbian in town with a pocket full of condoms.
Okay.
And she was a nurse and she happened to come to that event. And later she came to some other events that I was at and part of. And finally I got around to asking her out. I took her to my first date was to the worst movie ever.
Oh, what was it?
It was 8mm with Nicolas Cage,
Okay.
which is not a great date night movie. But you have to love somebody when I say, I want to go see the serial killer movie because I really love serial killer movies. And she's, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
We did have much, much better dates. Our next date was The Matrix. And so that was a little bit better.
Yeah.
That was before I became a murder writer, but it was already getting started in me. So we had so much of, we're very different. She's very athletic. She's a nurse. She currently has a doctorate in nursing. I'm passed out at the sight of blood. I'm not athletic at all. I'm a reader and a writer. And what we discovered really early was all that difference is wonderful
Yeah.
because we can have our lives, we can do what we want to do. And then at the end of the day, we come home and we share that with each other.
Yeah.
And so it's a wonderful marriage. It's been a great time.
That's awesome. And it's such a milestone especially in the gay community. 26 years together is a long time. It's funny, me and my husband have been together for 26 years as well. So we met in
Yay.
1998. So it's funny.
You had a chance to go to the same bad movies we went to.
Our first real date, we went to go see actually a good movie. We went to go see Something About Mary.
Oh, wonderful.
And the
You
reason
did
why
much
we
better
went,
than I did.
I just moved to New York and the movie was in Miami. And I think that's why maybe we went to go see it. So we had a good first date seeing Something About Mary. So
That works.
what kind of got you to think about, I want to write this book? What got you? Is there anything in the book? Because it's a mystery novel, and is there anything in this book that kind of reflects on who you are or about your life or anything?
Oh, absolutely. I had been writing for about 10 years as a ghostwriter and commission writer, where you write novels. I was writing genre mystery novels, and then you sell them to publishers and they get published under another name and
Okay.
get the check and go on with your life. And my literary agent had said, you really write well enough to be published traditionally under your own name. But
Oh,
I
that's
want to
awesome.
challenge you. I really want to challenge you to dig deep and be authentic. And don't just write a genre book. Write something you want to say. Write something that you want to bring out. And I looked for storylines and plots. And finally, I happened to be having a conversation with my massage therapist who is very young. And she was saying that she didn't understand what the big deal about O.J. Simpson was because in her whole lifetime, she was born by the time he was already called a murderer. So when we talk about it, she looks back at the idea about how shocked the whole world was at
Mhm.
that moment when he's driving down the highway. She doesn't understand that. I said, it would be like, and Tara Brach is a Buddhist teacher here on the West Coast. She's very well known. And I said, it would be like if Tara Brach, you woke up one day and the news said, Tara Brach murdered somebody. And I said, that's what it would feel like. And so I really caught on to the idea that we have these precognitions about who doesn't and couldn't murder somebody. And what if we challenge that? What if we said, here is this famous guru, this sort of beloved peace person, nationally known, and you wake up one day and she's accused of brutally murdering people. How shocking is that? And how much work does everyone, and that's what the book largely is, everyone in the book, trying to figure out, did she do this? And how you feel if she did, or how you feel if she didn't. And that was a really compelling image. As a Buddhist, there's a lot of stereotypical or romanticized views of Buddhism. We're always patient, we're always kind, we're always happy. And a lot of that is true. But that doesn't mean that we can be treated badly or we don't have human moments or that our whole life isn't a human moment.
Yeah.
But what I like about Buddhism is it's being real. It's being absolutely who you are in the moment where you are. And so I wanted to write a book that kind of illustrated that. sort of thing that even the most peaceful, noted person could be pushed to and possibly past the
Mhm.
breaking point.
Yeah.
And as that story unfolds, you go back through Lila Rose's life and how she got into the situation in which she finds herself. And there's a lot of that. That's really one of the publishers that I was seeking asked me, why would LGBTQ people read this book? And I said, because for lesbians, particularly, it's our story if you're a lesbian of a certain age. It's about discovering that not everybody has a crush on Joe from Facts of Life. Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe it's just you.
Yeah.
And then overcoming that and going to college and meeting other women who love women and saying, yes, everybody does have a crush on Joe from Facts of Life. And
Yeah.
it's not just you.
Yeah.
It's about facing misogyny head on and facing the violence of misogyny head on. And so it brings about those certain things. There are some things in this character that are very much me. I moved every 2 years growing up because my dad was a defense contractor, and this character moves every 2 years. There is a period of time where there is a separation from her parents and a disowning. And I did go through a separation with my parents and a lot, particularly again, as with people of my generation. There was a lot of that going out to college or being sent out in the world without familial support
Yeah.
and what that does and how that affects you. And so you'll see people, particularly again in the LGBT community, who are overly self reliant, who struggle to ask for help, who struggle to show weakness. And part of it is those early bonds that were broken over identity and over ideas. And you get this idea of, so nobody's going to help me. I have to help myself.
Yeah.
And if you don't begin to even that out, it can really create challenge and disharmony in
A-
you and in your life.
And so your character comes out in the book and kind of discovers herself. Is that part of the storyline?
When the book starts, her wife has been murdered.
Oh, her wife. Oh,
And
wow.
that
Was your
that
wife
is
a little
my wife's
nervous?
fine.
Okay. No, but was she
Okay.
ever nervous whenever she started reading this book? She's like, "This your plan?"
She is a nurse, and so there are a lot of scenes in set in a hospital, and so I asked her lots of those questions. So she was more interested in that I got the hospital parts accurately,
Okay, got it.
because if you've ever watched a movie or been around a nurse very long, the minute you're inaccurate, that's it. TV
Yeah.
goes off, book gets put down.
Yeah.
But that opens that book and then takes through her discovering what it means to be a lesbian, her living that truth. And it goes through, in sometimes humorous ways, the discussion with her parents at college, where everybody assumes her roommate is her lover just because they're two women and she
Yeah.
happens to be gay, and that kind of thing that lesbians tend to go through, where every female you're with, if it's just for lunch, they're like, oh, you're together.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, we're not. And then how her grief ultimately compels her into a situation that seems impossible and sharing and opening that grief. And so there is a lot of those things that make it authentic and real, the same that parts of this life journey that I've had. But it is an entirely fictional story. My wife is fine.
Okay.
I'm not murderous. I do still have a crush on Joe from Facts of Life. I grew up in that process and have other crushes. But
And you gonna have a follow-up book? Because it seems like it's an amazing story. Have you left it where
there
it
is
can
a
be a part?
follow-up slated. This is a two-book story, but of course, you have to sell the first to be able to write the second.
Yeah.
But this book is largely about grief and how we handle grief and how we handle anger. And the second book is really about death. In Buddhism, we talk about death all the time, and we talk about it very openly. It was a hard sell for publishers, even when I'm at book signings, and they say, "What's this about?" And I say, "Well, it's a murder mystery about how we handle grief." There's this just graying.
Yeah.
So I've learned to just stop it. It's a murder mystery. But the next book takes the title from the Mary Oliver poem, and it's called When Death Comes,
Okay.
and takes these same characters through that process. And then also has a little bit of a mystery component to it.
What does the Buddhist religion thinks happen whenever you die?
There are different types of Buddhism, just like there are different types of Christianity or any other religion. But for the most part, we don't spend as much time on the exactness of what happens as we are the process of it happening.
Mm.
There is this kind of misconception that Buddhism believes in reincarnation, and that's actually not accurate. Hindus believe in reincarnation. But in Buddhism, by and large, most forms of Buddhism come to this understanding that you leave your shell, you leave your body as impermanent, and you exist in this kind of space that we call the bardo. There's actually a very interesting fiction book that won the National Book Award a few years ago called Lincoln in the Bardo,
Okay.
which is looking at Lincoln from a Buddhist point of view. But you become part of this bardo, you become back a part of everything that is.
Yeah.
And what happens after that, depending on the different sect of Buddhism, some believe you go to a nirvana existence where it's peace and happiness. Some believe you become back a part of the world's fabric and are reborn in another way. It just depends. But our real focus is living today. We spend a lot of time talking about impermanence. One of the great tenets of Buddhism is that everything is impermanent. And we do that not because we're overly focused on death, but because we're overly focused on life. If you understand that nothing lasts, then every day is really a chance to build on that good life. And then when it is time to leave your body, to go into that thing, that body, that sense of that great ocean that is all of us.
Yeah.
Because Buddhism really is about being connected with one another and understanding that we are connected to one another. There's this sort of misunderstanding about the idea of self, and they say, oh, Buddhists say there's no self, so you don't exist. And that's not really correct in any way. The idea is that we are part of the causes and conditions together, that there's no
Yeah.
separate self.
Yeah.
And you
I
become part of
totally
that.
am on board with that. I don't know. I feel like I did buy a book about Buddhism a couple of times. I feel like I should go back to it and read it because I think like I said at the beginning of the interview, it's the religion I feel like I connect with the most.
And the great thing is, if you're not just ready to take refuge and declare yourself a Buddhist, there are still good things in Buddhism. You can meditate, you can practice generosity, you can practice awareness. You don't have to be a Buddhist to have the balance and the happiness that Buddhism gives.
Yeah. There was a guy that I used to work with who was a Buddhist, and he would always try to teach me how to be more mindful and be in the moment because I have a problem with that. I think a lot of times where I'm always thinking 20 steps ahead and I'm not like in the moment. And I had the same issue you have was the sleep. I took, I had somebody teach me transcendental meditation, and I think it helped me clear my mind for the moment. And I do feel like I have a better day whenever I do it at the beginning of the day, but it definitely does not help me sleep. So I've tried to do it when I sleep, but I've heard that there's another part of transcendental meditation that you could do that actually helps you sleep. I just haven't learned that yet.
Anything that can give your body rest, give your mind rest is going to help you. One of the more practical ways I know to fall asleep is if you will take a hot bath or a hot shower about an hour before you go to bed. And then as you cool down, because when you sleep, your body naturally cools down. The fact that you're forcing your body to cool itself down will make you sleepy.
Mm.
And so when I do need to sleep, I have done that where I've taken a nice hot bath and read a book for a little bit and lay down. And then as my body goes down, it tricks your mind into thinking, oh, my temperature's going down. I'm falling asleep.
I will
And
try that.
give it a try. It's surprisingly helpful. And that's when I usually I do a form of meditation in Tibetan Buddhism called Jane, which is really just about focusing on the breath and letting everything else go. And it's surprisingly easier to fall asleep when you're not worried about the car payment or the government.
Yeah.
Else. You're just worried about breathing. And that is actually where got the title for this book. The space between breaths is there is between your inhale and your exhale, there's a pause.
Yeah.
And it's in that pause, there's this mythic idea that it's in that pause that everything really happens,
Yeah.
that space between those breaths. And so that's where we find our story in the case of this book. But it is really a wonderful way to, particularly in a time right now where there's so much anger, there's so much outrage. And every time we play into the outrage, we're following a script that is not ours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And taking a moment, whether it's a 1-minute meditation where you do some jane just for a minute to get back to center, or you do a more formal meditation, it helps cut that tie to reacting.
What is it called again? What's the meditation called?
Zhine, Jane.
Okay.
And it's really very easy. It's about focusing on your breath by breathing and counting.
Okay.
There are some people who will tell you it's the training rules of meditation, but I don't think so. I know great masters of meditation to do Jane and start with Jane because it's just a perfect way to focus only on your breath.
Okay. I haven't
And
tried anything, so I will definitely look. I think, like I said, meditation, whenever I do it, That's the problem is I have to find time to do it or make time to do it. But whenever I do it, I feel so much better throughout the day. So
It is. It's one of those things, and it doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to sit in a lotus position and be absolutely perfect. One of the favorite things I say when I'm meditating with somebody is sit straight, whatever straight means for you.
yeah,
You don't have to have that perfect monk posture. You don't have to take 25 minutes. You can really sit in a chair and begin to breathe. And what meditation largely is mind training. It's a way of learning to bring your mind back to where you want it to be, because it, particularly in nowadays, between everything that's going on, the million forms of stimulation that are around us all the time, your mind is going everywhere. And so what happens is people will start to meditate, and inevitably then their brain is on a train and they're going to the grocery store, or they're thinking
mhm,
about what they said 3 days ago, which they wish they hadn't said. And all meditation really is saying, that's really normal and that's really natural. That doesn't mean you're a bad meditator. It means your brain's doing what brains do.
yeah,
And what meditation about is saying, okay, brain, you want to go to the store, you have these issues, but right now let's just come back. Let's just come back. And it's training your brain, not so that it never runs away, but so that you can always bring it back and bring it to where it needs to be. And that's what happens. And it's very easy. All you have to do is you inhale, exhale, in your head, count 1. Inhale, exhale, in your head, count 2. Go all the way up to 5. And then at 5, inhale, exhale, go down to 4. Inhale, exhale, go down to 3. Inhale, exhale, 2, 1. That's a 3-minute meditation. You don't have to put it on your calendar. You can literally sit in a chair at work and do it.
yeah,
And you will find yourself folding back into a place of calm and a place of where you are. And the only other caveat to that is if you're doing it, usually most meditators who are going to do a formal meditation, I count to 21 and down. But to
yeah,
get started, 5 is a good number. If your brain runs off, if you're at 3 and you're thinking, was that 3 or was that 2? That means your brain is on the train. Bring it back and say, let's start over at 1.
yeah,
So if you lose count in your little count, start over at 1, and you'll be training your brain very gently to come back when you call it back and to stay on that breath. And once you can do 5, then do 10. Once you can do 10, you can do 15. But there's really, if you're standing in the subway and somebody's throwing a fit and you've just at that line, just stand there and breathe in and breathe out and count 1, and you
yeah,
will feel that center. Our breath really is our center. It's that core of us. And anytime you can get your mind in line with it, you can be calm through a lot of hurricane.
yeah. That's awesome. I love that. I'm going to try it. Everybody
Give it a try.
listening should try it and leave a comment on the podcast and let us know if that worked for you. Cause I think I love things like that where just to help you calm your mind even in the moment. Awesome.
Absolutely. Nothing needs to be made harder than it is.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Kelly. Do you have a website if you're doing book signings anywhere that people can go to?
You can, and I love to listen to people and hear their ideas. And one of the other things I do, I write for the Tattooed Buddha, which is a Buddhist magazine. And I write about horror movies and how horror tropes feed into and illustrate Buddhist ideas. And so I have a page on my website. If you think there's a horror movie you'd like me to see and write about, I'm very happy to do it. You can get a hold of me in any way at kellieschorr.com.
And that's
And
CHORR. And it's
CHO Kelly, CHORR.com.
and it's
And
also
when you get
Kelly is
there,
KELLIE, just so you know. And I'll put this in the description of the podcast for everyone. So if you aren't writing it down, you can get it through the description.
so if somebody has thoughts or has questions, there's a contact page, there's a watch performance page, there's a list of book resources after you read the book. There's some letters to readers and some discussion ideas and questions, but it's full of spoilers. So don't look at that page until you read the book. And I love to talk with people and be with them and interact. And so I'm so thankful for podcasts like this where I can get a chance to meet you and have a great discussion.
Yeah, I'm buying the book as soon as we hang up this call. The name of the book again is The Space Between Breaths. It is published by Brother Mockingbird Publishing. And it is, I checked before coming on, it is available on Barnes & Noble. It's available on Amazon. It's probably available on any bookstore website, I would assume at this point. It looks like a fantastic book. And I love it, and I can't wait to get it and read it, and then see the next chapter come out after we get it, after we read it. So thank you so much for being on, Kelly. You're great. You, like I said, I think you have a fantastic background and story. So I appreciate you sharing it with everyone.
Oh, I appreciate you giving us a chance and getting to meet you and getting you to maybe give a little meditation a try and be good to you.
Yeah, I will. I'll definitely try it today. So thank you so much for being on, Kelly.
Thank you so much.
Check the description and be sure to subscribe to my podcast and also be sure to buy Kelly's book. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Not everyone understands house music. It's a spiritual thing, a body thing, a soul thing. A soul thing, 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 thing. Not everyone understands house music.
Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Going to high. Let's go. 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 Get the fuck. Let's go.
Everyone understands house music. It's a spiritual thing, a body thing, a soul thing, a soul thing. Not everyone understands house music.